If you thought that the Final Fantasy XI mobile game was going to be the resurgence of the title, I got some bad news for you. Long have we had waited any kind of news about Final Fantasy XI Mobile, codenamed FFXIR, from Nexon, Square Enix, anybody, just to tell us what's going on. Unfortunately, we finally did get an update, sort of, in the form of news coming from a Korean news site, MTN, reporting that the development of Final Fantasy XI Mobile has been canceled. Square Enix's official response, when questioned about this news, was the same line that they've been feeding everybody. As this is a joint project with Nexon, we are unable to provide an answer to this question at present. So, I don't know, we're taking this right now to mean it's canceled, which isn't a huge surprise, considering we've had no updates or details on it basically in the past 5 years. The only new piece of information we've gleaned from job postings on Nexon's site where they used materials from, supposedly, Final Fantasy XI Mobile to say, like, isn't this a cool place to work? Look at this fun projects we work on. No, nothing. No updates. Nada. Zip. So how does this make me feel? How am I reacting to this news? Obviously, Final Fantasy XI is a huge part of my life. It's basically the most played game I've ever owned. I've played over 550 days worth of this game, which is an absurd number, and frankly, apparently not even that big compared to a lot of fellow players out there. You guys are crazy. You're nuts. I love you. It's no surprise that this game is my favorite game of all time. So this news is obviously critical to me. What are my thoughts? I don't know. I'm confused, let down, happy, sad, angry, excited, all at the same time, somehow bundled into this one little ball of emotion that's trying to figure out what it thinks. I have no idea what this means because there's no official direction from any of it. It's just, yeah, it's probably canceled and nobody wants to talk about it. But let's get into why I would even feel all those different emotions. Let's assume it's canceled based on the news that we have at this point. It's no longer being developed by Nexon or, in theory, Square Enix either. Why does that make me feel all these things? Look, Final Fantasy XI is amazing, but it's nearing the end of its life. There's no doubting that. Ultimately, its official support is down to small monthly updates, generally tweaks to jobs that kind of have ceased this year, but were a big deal last year. We're getting tweaks to different jobs every month to make them, in theory, more balanced, more effective. But even with the added attention that Square Enix is providing 11 now in 2020, compared to, what it was a few years ago when they were announcing the end of all new story content. Because now we have the Voracious Resurgence storyline, a new storyline that developers are rolling out every month, 2 months or so, in little small increments. And it's been a little lackluster so far, but the fact of the matter is that the content is there, it is new, and that's nice to see. They're also doing official streams to support new players with guides, just interactive content that we've never really seen from Square Enix for something like Final Fantasy XI. I say all this to say that Final Fantasy XI is getting more attention than it has in years, which is funny because we all thought it was going away. And I'm glad to see that attention come to it, but at the same time, it still doesn't seem like enough to make me believe that they've got this 10-year plan for Final Fantasy XI, that it's still, in theory, reaching its end of life. And they're trying to give it a smooth next few years to keep invested players like myself around, but I have nothing to really necessarily believe yet that they want to take it further. The big thing will obviously be this mystery announcement in 2022. Is it something as big as a new expansion, new update, an HD remaster? I mean, those are the lofty goals that we hope for. Or is it something smaller, something exciting, but still not, game-saving worthy, if that makes sense? I'm talking a lot about Final Fantasy XI and its state to bring us back to Final Fantasy XI Mobile and why its cancellation and, original development were so important. Because 11, in theory, might be gone in 3-4 years. I guess we have a pretty good safety net to 2022, though. It's nice. But this is an announcement for Final Fantasy XI Mobile's announcement that it was coming, which was, I swear, like 5 years ago, brought with it some trepidation. Final Fantasy XI is a massive game. It promotes tight-knit unity across various players that are communicating historically by keyboard to carefully time different attacks that have to be coordinated in such a way within a certain window. to fire off effectively. I'm talking about skill chains, magic bursts. You have to have deep knowledge of enemies and their weaknesses, spells and their types and what they're effective or not effective against. It was incredibly deep. Everything I just said doesn't at a glance seem to really pair up well with mobile games as we know them. It promotes focus. You have to be focused on the game, understanding, what enemy am I fighting, what spells seem to have been effective, what were not, where are its strengths, where are my strengths, its weaknesses, and every battle that changes slightly with the players that you have grouped up with, what their skill sets are, what they bring to the table. There's just so much, and mobile games are generally about quick in and out experiences that you may not have to focus on too much. You might be in line for some food somewhere and you're like, I'm gonna quick hop onto this mobile game. A deep game like 11 doesn't really seem like it would fit. But having said that, the game is full of kind of mindless, repetitive grinds that maybe don't fit in the space of gaming as well these days, with how busy everybody is, the quicker solution for rewards and delivery that people are after with modern game design. But there are a lot of grinds in the classic form of 11, and even modern 11, of just killing monsters over and over again. And it may not really be difficult at the point that you're doing it or with the group that you're doing it with. You just gotta hack away at it over and over again. Farming for items is obviously sometimes the easiest thing you can do in the game. You're killing something that isn't a threat to you at all, but you need to kill it over and over and over again to get a bunch of items to sell at the auction house, or maybe to use for crafting. Crafting is kind of mindless. Once you figure out the recipe that you're gonna do, you get all the ingredients and then you just go. These are the things that over the years have made me wish that Final Fantasy XI was a little more mobile than I was able to play it. Like, if I could play that, we used to joke, we thought it was coming to maybe the PSP, really thought it might come to the PlayStation Vita. Those would have been amazing platforms for it, because just being able to be anywhere and get those kind of tasks done, travel with, airships, boats, just running through the wilderness can sometimes take a lot of time, and it's not always dangerous. Chocobos are basically immune to all damage. Airships are free of enemies of any kind. Boats stay in the lower holds. But my point is, there's a lot that when you look at Final Fantasy XI, you're like, yes, that would work perfectly on a mobile platform as part of the game. And this is where at least my excitement sort of started coming from, because I was like, okay, what if with today's technology, Final Fantasy XI Mobile wasn't a mobile-only game? What if it was released on PC, maybe consoles, and then also mobile? What if the mobile portion was in addition to the experience that you could have elsewhere, you could just continue your game? We've seen this with games like Fortnite. Fortnite has delivered that experience flawlessly. You can play that game basically anywhere you want. And Final Fantasy XI specifically has always been known for its I run anywhere and you have the same experience. It was one of the first games I'd ever seen to be played simultaneously on the PS2, PC, and then later on the Xbox 360, with the same players on the same servers playing together across all three sets of hardware. The PS2, PC, and 360, that's an insane combination. To this day, only a few games will let you play on the PS4 or now PS5 and PC. Sony hates that. I don't know, they might be changing their tune, but point being, Final Fantasy XI was a trendsetter. It broke new grounds. The idea that it might do it again and say, we've got this full-fledged, amazing MMO experience, and if you want to continue it on your phone wherever you are, do it. If you want to hop on and see if people want to start a party, and then by the time you get home after being on your phone, they're ready for you, go for it. That sounds incredible. And this isn't anything new in 2020. Genshin Impact just came out and basically did that exact thing. They released on mobile and PC simultaneously, and like, play it, whatever, we don't care, have fun however you want. And it looks great on both systems, to be honest. So it's this weird combination of like more complexity than I think can fit on a mobile game in its original state, or even retail especially, with aspects of the game that fit so well in a mobile environment that I would love to see them mash up. But there was so much fear. Because none of this was ever officially suggested. Nexon or Square Enix never came out and like, it's coming to everything. It's all glimpsed from rumors and ideas and hopes. Nexon had stated that part of their big direction moving forward as a company was to release more games that could be played anywhere, that mobile wasn't the sole focus of their game delivery. It was just one platform that they could release games on for players to play. And they could also be on PC or console, just to widen the space of where they could deliver games to customers. I mean, it's for business. It's not like some beautiful idea that they came up with just for the sake of helping out customers. No, if they can get more gamers playing their games, in theory, that would make them more money down the line. And I keep saying Nexon, and I haven't even brought up the biggest worries there. Nexon is a huge concern. The fact that they were tied to this was, for many, a knife in the heart from the project from the very start. They're like, Nexon has done a lot of bad for the gaming industry in terms of its mobile development practices. And the fact that Final Fantasy XI, my favorite game of all time, was in their hands was terrifying. Now, the only thing that was sort of making me feel a little better about that was I was like, maybe they're just the means to an end. Square Enix is still sort of driving the reins, and they're just putting the game together with their mobile experience. Unfortunately, we'll never know because nobody talks about it. Okay, so I've given all this background. All right, so I've given all this background on where my head was at before, what was it, Monday or Tuesday when this was announced that in theory, I kept waiting. I was waiting for an official announcement, and none ever came, but the cancellation of this development. Let's just go through all the different emotions and why I'm feeling partially relief. Look, I mean, there was a huge chance of this game just being a cash grab on a well-known IP and a Final Fantasy title that is suitable in theory to kind of being squished down and put in a mobile game and attracting a large player base that hasn't had anything to do with that game in a long time. And I can't imagine how disappointed I would have felt hopping into Final Fantasy XI Mobile for the first time, seeing all of these zones that I know so well, beautifully rendered in a modern Unreal 4 engine with updated models, textures. It looked like some of the zones were going to be squished together, which could have been good or bad, just less zoning, but still the same amount of space and more variety, beauty of 2020 development. And then having like an energy timer on the top saying like, oh, you've run out of energy, you need to spend $5, your character can't run any further. Or even worse, all of the quest lines, storylines, some of the aspects of 11 that made it so special were just dumbed down into like these tiny little shallow versions of themselves, fractions of enemies perhaps, fractions of the overall complexity of the game in terms of weapon skills, skill chains, magic bursts. Can you imagine if like they just didn't have skill chains and magic bursts in Final Fantasy XI Mobile? How sad that would be. Point being, it was very possible, and in fact almost likely, considering how much attention it was getting, that this could have been a very shallow Final Fantasy XI wrapped experience, but with nothing really inside it. So, with that never coming to pass, the Final Fantasy XI name remains mostly untarnished. Either you remember it from its glory days or its current form, and you love or hate that, but it is what it is, and nobody will ever have anything else to reference in terms of what 11 may or may not be. But I mean, this also leads to my inevitable sadness over the cancellation of my favorite game ever getting another release of some kind, and now that release is just canceled. This was a chance for Final Fantasy XI to be at the forefront of everybody's minds again. Literally at the top of app download pages. Get that name out there. Get people asking, what is Final Fantasy XI? Is it fun? How can I get involved? Like that chance is squandered. It was something new and fresh in the minds of gamers, and it had the Final Fantasy XI title, concepts, and gameplay behind it, in theory. What if it was all that 11 was and more, and it was just fresh and new, and it was across multiple platforms of mobile, PC, consoles, everything. Like we said, 11 was always known for bringing different platforms and people together, and this could have been that game that sparked a whole new revolution of how MMOs could work on mobile. Instead of getting games like Black Desert Online mobile, which is beautiful, but kind of a shadow of the main game. You could just get Black Desert Online also playable on mobile. So where does that leave me now? My biggest hope is what Epic alluded to on stream when we were discussing this. This could still mean that Square Enix has decided to treat the Final Fantasy XI brand more seriously. There have been recent announcements of mobile versions of big IPs, most notably Diablo Immortal, or whatever it was called, was met with harsh criticism because it was a mobile-only version of that game, and people were very excited and dying for and waiting for Diablo 4. So to be told that that development time was instead going to Diablo Immortal, a mobile-only game, was disheartening, and people were furious. Square Enix isn't dumb. Their heads aren't totally in the sand. They're definitely watching that. They're seeing that reaction and saying, oh, okay, perhaps selling one of our best, most beloved online games that we've ever made as a mobile cash grab might infuriate our fan base. And they're familiar with what that can do to a brand. I mean, when Final Fantasy XIV 1.0 came out, Square Enix has never rallied behind anything harder to fix their brand image because it was hurting. Square Enix has officially stated that they were concerned that the Final Fantasy brand may never recover because of how bad Final Fantasy XIV 1.0's launch was. That shows how important Final Fantasy MMORPGs can be. If you take 11, which has a die-hard fan base, and you just throw it on mobile as a quick, cash win, people are going to be pissed. They might have seen that. And as you've seen, there has been more attention to 11 than ever before. It's got this 3-year budget. It has new storylines coming out. They were going to do the Fan Fest before COVID, unfortunately canceled that interaction. They are trying to interact with the community with the live streams, and they're really putting more effort into Final Fantasy XI in general. Will it be enough? What are the long-term plans? We're not sure, but there's no denying that Square Enix is paying more attention, and they might have suddenly looked at this IP and said, we might be doing more harm than good by releasing a crappy game. They are still planning for something big in 2022. We have no idea what that is. We've had a lot of theories. I'll try to find the video of us discussing what our many theories might have been. It's been across various Twitch streams, various videos. I feel like we bring it up every once in a while. It's like, what's happening in 2022? But ultimately, if they started looking at that and saying 11 can be more than it is, and the mobile release, A, isn't going to add anything to that, and B, is probably going to hurt it, then it's good that they canceled it, and I'm glad that they're looking at 11 seriously instead of just thinking of it as a name that they can probably make a little more money off of. But honestly, it's still way too early to say. We are never given enough information one way or the other about what the 11 mobile project was, what it was like to play it, where it was going direction-wise, what platforms it would be released on. We never even knew if it was coming to Android and iOS. As far as I know, they were just kind of like mobile, which likely both, but come on. We've literally been scrapping together pieces of information from board meetings, job postings, plans for Nexon's future where they'd have a Final Fantasy XI mobile sticker saying, we're still working on this and it's going to bring us money in 2021. Apparently it's not. So yeah, the assumption has been development must not be going well, but it was never quite clear. But how about you guys? That was a long-winded post because frankly, I've got a lot to say. I'm excited to go out. I haven't watched any other videos on what everybody else is thinking because I wanted to sort through my own feelings first. And if you watch too many other videos about what's going on, all of a sudden you're like, yeah, that sounds about right. Do you guys think this is good news, bad news, bit of both? Could you care less? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below, or join us on Twitch streams every Tuesday and Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Bring your thoughts there. Bring them up. I love talking about this stuff. As sad or as happy as this may be, I want to hear what you guys are thinking. Usually people can find analytical bits of information that I would have never thought of. So bring it up. Come on, hit me. But otherwise, I'll see you guys all in game. Happy holidays if I don't talk to you, and have a good one. Peace. All right, get in there, Pamama. Do a Thunder 5, 3 ice maneuvers. Big money. 68K, nice. Who just magic bursted a stun, by the way? Matsui. Good work. How are we doing on MP? Fine. We are doing fine on MP. That's what I like to see.